Hold on, guys. I don't know what's going on right now. I'm going to try and fix this. It's like my... Hold on. Well, I'm going to end this, and we're going to come back and see if... Or let me hop out and come back. I don't know what this is about. Hold on a second. Oh, what is this? It's like it's playing it back to me. Okay, let's... Sorry, guys. I don't know what this is about or why it's doing this. And now it's not letting me open up my mic thing here. I think I fixed it. Oh my gosh, that was so terrible. Sorry about that. I don't know what y'all were hearing, but it was... Yeah, exactly. It was like, what the heck is going on? Jeez, like the day the earth... the day the earth stood still, I was like, what kind of theremin is playing right now? What is going on? I never even learned to play the theremin. So glad that was done. So I guess in my attempt earlier, I was playing with the mic to try. I'm trying to get the sound quality a little bit better for these videos, and so I was listening, playing with the audio, trying to get rid of echoes and to do all that. I think what I need ultimately is a mixer, but I'm not that cool yet. So what it is, what it is. So I was playing with it, but I had to hear it back on my headphones, and I guess it wasn't like it was a test setting, and the test setting just remained on. I had to turn that off. So, you know what, Jimi Hendrix, I'll take that. I'll take that. So good news, bad news, kind of a situation. So the good news is the Siru YouTube channel is up, and the first 3 videos are up. I'm going to try and put after this. Wow, allergies are killing me. After this episode, though, I'm going to do one more. It's going to be a thing on the UAP report that came out. The next week or so, I'm going to be putting out a lot of videos on that just so we can get some content on there. And then basically, I'd like to ratchet down to like once a month. We're going to start doing more in-depth videos. Like we'll start having illustrations and things. But for the first 5 or 6 videos, just enough to get content on there, they're just going to be me talking. Just sort of laying down a foundational concept, right? So that's the thing that y'all can share and like, follow, subscribe. That you share those videos to your friends, your enemies, people you don't know, your dog, your cat. That's the thing I want to like this over here. I want this to stay small. I like the fact that we all know each other. This is a small, intimate thing. That one can blow up, and it needs to, because it's designed to be a voice. It's designed to be the voice, a biblical voice in the paranormal, cryptozoological, forbidden archaeological world. And yeah, we're going to do questions. Like we keep getting questions a lot about, like, you know, I mean, what you know, my favorite one is, well, the Bible's been translated so many times. How do you even know if you've got the real version, right? We've talked about that before. So we're gonna do a short video on that. We're gonna do videos on how all kinds of things about the questions about the Bible. How did we get it? Where did it come from? Um, that won't be the main point, but they will be there, right? Um, also, and so tucked in there is going to be things like, well, what about the fact that there are unicorns in the Bible, and there's, they're treated as real animals, and what about the cockatrix that's in the Bible, that's listed in the Bible in the King James version, those kinds of things. It talks about satyrs. What do we do with those? So we're going to have videos on all of that. So it's good to go. Okay, Susan, where the heck are you? 64 and 81 today? Susan, where the heck are you? Now, I'm in Texas. It's actually been rather mild. Like down around Dallas, I think the high today is only going to be like 98, 97, 98 today. So, which is mild because we're in July, we're in August now. Yeah. Today's August 1st. It's that cool in Kentucky? Well, okay. Anyway, point being, like here in Texas, it's only we've only broken 100, I think, like once or twice, at least around Dallas. It's this is mild. Like this is August. Normally by the time you get into June, early July, we should have broken 100 once. Like I think the year I was born is still considered the hottest year on record, with as far as consistent. Like by this point, we should have had at least a week or two of 100-degree days, right? So yeah, but on the same point, I guess it is cooler. Like y'all get actual snow, and that's a problem that y'all can have from time to time. Like we get snow for like a week when we get it. Like again, in a year when we get snow, we get it for like a week, and then it's over. And it only happens once every couple of years. Like this last thing that we had that was so bad was a once in 100-year thing. Like it's a natural disaster. So I guess there's that. I like the cold, but I don't like the cold that much. So I guess it's all trade-offs. But anyway, so again, so that's the good thing. The good thing is YouTube. The YouTube channel is up. It's going to be passable. I like to say it's going to be awesome, but let's be honest. I have limited technology here. It's going to be passable for a while, right? But that's what it's going to be. They're going to be short videos, 5 to 10, no more than 5 to 10 minutes. They're designed to be shared and to give reasons for things and explore these questions, like the things we're exploring on Texas show, right? Like again, the question I ask is it possible that all cryptids aren't real, that they're all some sort of manifestation or something? Yeah, it is a possibility. But is it really? We'll explore all kinds of concepts on the show and address them properly, but from a biblical worldview. That's the goal. So that's the thing you can follow. So follow, subscribe that, but then share the crap out of those videos. People need to know that there's a place to go for these things. And like I said, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to put up a lot of videos. So people can have lots of resources for the foundational questions, right? And then we're going to start getting into some really interesting things with more artwork, and it'll be slightly more produced. It just takes time to do that kind of stuff. So there you have it. The bad news is the website isn't up. And again, the website wasn't going to be much. It was just going to say, well, so here's the problem. It's up. It just isn't updated. And what we were doing is we were going to scrap the whole website, redo it with the new logo, and basically just like, hey, if you want to find, please find our, Sirupapers has moved to YouTube. Please find all of our stuff here. If you would like to find, Jason can be found on these channels. His books can be found here. That's always going to be for now. And then maybe next year, I was going to start building the flood museum that's going to go on that site. It's going to be someone's like, look, you want a real in-depth explanation of the flood. its conversations, how we should address it. In evidence for it, here it is. Here's the Flood Museum. It's going to have stuff about the London Hammer. It's going to have stuff about all of the different evidences that are out there. Actually, the link is in the description, sir. The link is, Titan asked a great question. He's like, well, can't you put the link in the chat? I've already done better than that. It's already a part of our description. So if you go to the description at the very bottom, there's the link to the YouTube channel. It's sirupapers, and it is good to go. I've already tested. It's got a welcome video and everything. So anyway, that's it. So yeah, the bad news is the website's down. We tried calling the website or the hosting firm, and they were busy, so they couldn't answer. And I tried logging in, and there's something going on with the people who are hosting the website. And so as soon as I can get them online, I'll get them to scrap it. It should only take us like an hour to reset everything, but we got to get them to scrap it because we can't, like every time we try to access the website, not yet. Again, the museum isn't up yet. There's nothing up yet. I will, however, start working on merchandise. That is probably like Siru merchandise is something I'm going to start working on. But again, the idea is that the actual education from Siru is free, right? Instead of writing more books on all of these subjects, right? I want to do these Siru videos for free where everyone can see them, hear them, and get access to it. Like I said, the museum will also be free, but it's a purely online video. I will start creating merch for it though, just because people like merch. But by and large, everything's going to be free for Siru. I think the future books are all going to be, it's all going to be fiction stuff I'm going to work on, but at least for the time being. But for now, all of all of my work for the biblical worldview and the paranormal, that kind of stuff, it all goes on Siru. It's all free. And again, the museum will probably come up sometime next year. I just gotta actually make it, but it takes time. So it is what it is. And firstly and foremostly, the website hosting service needs to work. So anyway, so that's what it is, right? So good news is the YouTube channel is up. Description is in the link below. It's in the description below. And the website's not fully functional yet, but it will be. And once it's up, it's just going to be a catch-all for where to go until maybe sometime next year. Sometime next year, we should actually have the Flood Museum up, and it'll be an ever-growing and expanding resource for people who you point to and say, here's evidence for the flood. So that's the news. That's it. And like I said, I'll be doing a video actually after this one on the UAP report. In fact, I had it up and I shut it down because I'm like, maybe that's what was making the weird noise. I wasn't certain if for some reason the UAP report was creating that day the Earth stood still noise on the machine. It was not. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. But yeah, so Siru is up. Like, follow, subscribe, and then share those videos with your friends. And as for Alan is doing well. I was actually just talking to him. He's doing well. Everyone's safe. He's making an impact in the community. There is some problem that he's having right now that with his eldest daughter. She has to graduate high school. She has to take certain courses, or she has to take certain tests, right, to do it, and she can. The problem is, because of where he lives, basically she has to pay to do that. So that's sort of become an issue for him, is that they can't really afford for her to take the test. It's like $300 US. And it's expensive. So it's expensive for him for where he is. So that's one of those things where it has sort of become a little bit of an issue for him. And but God will make it happen. We know that. But other than that, the church is going well. People are coming. They're hearing him. He lives. He's ministering in a very, very poor and dangerous neighborhood, but people are hearing him. So other than that, my allergies are killing me. And I don't know why. I mean, it's terrible. I'm on medication right now, and it's still just all of my sinuses are full. On that, I'm fine. Well, okay, I hurt my foot the other day, but it's healing. It's doing well. Just hobbling around. But that's fine. So like I said, I'm good. My allergies are killing me. I don't know what to do to get rid of, just have all this stuff drain out. I am actually going to doctor to talk to them about my sinuses and see if about having, so I have sinusitis, and basically there's a surgery that you can do to fix it. And a friend of mine had it, and he had the surgery, and he's like, life is better than ever. So it is what it is. I can move to Kentucky. See, here's the problem. So actually, I think I do know what the problem is. Like I said, my allergies. I'm allergic to weed, and not like weed. I mean, like marijuana. I'm allergic to it. And South Dallas, all of us down here, there's a ton of illegal grow areas, right? They just go, they go out into these sort of unincorporated areas, and they go out onto property that's maybe owned, but it's just sort of left to its own devices, and they'll just find a little area and they'll put up these grow areas. So and they'll grow the plants, and so yeah, I think it's about that time. So it is what it is. So my allergies are killing me, but I'll live. I will. So West Texas, you know what? I have thought about that. In fact, that's sort of a conversation between the wife and I right now. Is like, we have a 5-year plan to get out of the business that I'm in, and sort of resituate ourselves. We're trying to figure out where to go. I was thinking Corsicana, just outside of Corsicana, around Lake Richland Chambers, because beautiful place, not that far from our loved ones, really. I mean, Corsicana it's a far enough drive that it would be a trip to people, but it's not far enough that it's unexplained, that you just couldn't do it, right? And Richland Chambers it's a beautiful place, and I'm not going to lie, it's also a really good place to go squatching. So I wish I was joking. The fact that I was like, well, hold on, let's look at some properties around the creeks that lead into or out of, right? I wish I could say I was kidding about that being part of the plan here, but I'm not. It is part of the plan. My wife tolerates it. I think as long as she gets the lakefront view, she's fine. But the idea is to build out there and actually have some granny flats for her mom and grandmother, and to actually maybe start off with having people come out and Airbnb it, just to help pay for things, do it smart. But that being said, while we're thinking about that, Deep West Texas is not out of the it's not an impossibility. There are some places like outside of Abilene that we were looking at. We got some friends out there. Hold on. I just saw Titan's comments. There's a giant forbidden zone there, and I'm telling you what lives there. Forbidden zone in East Texas. Yeah, trust me, I know exactly what's out in East Texas. Jeez, man. But Deep West Texas is yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, as far as allergies go, West Texas might be a better idea, all things considered. But the problem is, once you go deep enough into West Texas, then you have sandstorms. Oh, Richland Chambers, yeah. Well, so Richland Chambers, like I said, we know that there's things out there, right? And that's, but like I said, with Richland Chambers, the real issue is going to be meth heads, more than anything. But that's really not going to be a problem. I know what you're talking about. But it's wildlife. Honestly, the feral hogs are the biggest problem in Richland Chambers. I knew a guy who he wanted to set up basically a pig catch. So it's basically a pig trap. They can get in, but they can't get out. Now I'm like, okay, that's cute, but hogs are smart. They'll figure that out. But he wanted to do it and just go out there, basically pop them, get pork. So really the biggest problem with Richland Chambers is going to be the pigs. I like to set up something around there, make it nice. But again, West Texas is not out of the question. Although, again, like you said, maybe the allergies are better, but then you get sandstorms. So, everyone's got a place. Like, if you live in East Texas, you have all that pollen that just covers your car like yellow every year. And of course, the allergies out there are just insane. You live in South Texas, you've got just really oppressive heat, and you've got the snakes. You go in West Texas, you get the sand. You go to California, you have California. That's your big oppressive issue there. If it's North Texas, you got tornadoes. If it's the East Coast, if it's the East Coast, you've got rain and hurricanes in New York. If it's the West Coast, you got earthquakes, fires in California. Everything's got a place to deal with, right? So right now, I figure if I just can't breathe for like 3 months out of the year, really, like the rest of it, I can at least breathe. I guess I'm doing pretty okay. I know some people whose allergies cause them to have migraines. Well, I have migraines too, but migraines on a more regular basis. So anyway, but that's it. Lots of conversations to be had. So we're all having fun here. But today is going to be an interesting day. I ran across something interesting. One sort of doing research for today's rattlesnakes are everywhere, right? Believe me, rattlesnakes are a nuisance everywhere. They are. Trust me, I'm a native Texan. I know. Like up here, we got water moccasins, we got copperheads, we got rattlesnakes, we got coral snakes. I've never actually seen one. I have to admit, I've never seen a coral snake in the area where I live, but I know that they're here. And I think there's like 18 or 84. I can't remember how many rattlesnake subspecies there's supposed to be, but like throughout Arizona, sort of the Enchanted Desert area, going down West Texas down to South Texas into Mexico, it depends on the count, but there's a bunch of different snakes. So yeah, trust me, I'm aware. There's 112 years. Yep. Well, there you go. There you go. Mary's got you there. But yeah, ran across something really interesting, and it changed how I even view the Beatitudes a little bit. This is where doing deep dives into things like and really looking at other people's opinions can be really valuable, because like I actually was looking at a Catholic. It was a Catholic sort of view on the Beatitudes, and by and large, there's nothing different. But it was their opening that I thought was really, really interesting. In that they said that it was part of Jesus being shown as the new Moses in the book of Matthew. And I was like, hold up. Let's go back and play with that idea a little bit. And so we're going to talk about that here in a second. It's really interesting. It sort of changes up the Beatitudes a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. Okay, I know there are no rattlesnakes in South Louisiana, but you've got other things in South Louisiana. You know what I don't have here? Sharks. I don't got sharks up here. Southern Louisiana, y'all got sharks. So no, I'm good where I'm at. So let's open in prayer, and then we'll talk about the Beatitudes a little bit, because again, the Sermon on the Mount is the central document for Christianity. It's one of the 5 dialogues in Matthew. Oh wow, yeah, that's a lot of snakes. I've only had to pull out a couple baby snakes out of our house in 7 years that we've lived here. I mean, they're still snakes, but yeah, dealing with them. Other reason I don't like East Texas, or I don't want to go to East Texas. The plumbing, snakes ending up in people's toilets. No, that doesn't happen up here. No. So that is also a factor in where we're going to live, is whether or not snakes get into our toilets. Just saying. Where was I? Because that's the snake in the toilet thing really threw me off. Well, we'll just pray and we'll get into it. But yeah, other than that, everything seems to be going pretty well. Oh, that's the other thing. August 22nd. Let me confirm that date. Make sure I'm not making it up. Let's make sure I'm not lying about it. Yeah. So August 21st. So that's not it. So yeah, that's like 3 Sundays from now. We will not be having. We won't be meeting here, because I will be driving out to East Texas to go pray with our friend Crypto Hulk. He does have cancer. We're gonna go up. We're gonna pray with him. We're gonna pray over him. Unfortunately, I can't go live, so I'm hoping to have the time. Actually, I think I've got the time here. But we'll do it. We'll sync it up here later. 1 p.m. is when I'm meeting him. So y'all can pray with me during that time. Unfortunately, I can't go live on this channel. And plus, where he lives, the connection is terrible anyway. So, but I'm going to go. We're going to pray for him. And we're going to just say, hey, 1 o'clock, if y'all can say a prayer for him and over him for his healing, that would be great. Now, the other side of that is, since I can't be here on Sunday, I will be here on Saturday. So Saturday afternoon, it's going to be me and Nathan. Nathan, unfortunately, can't make it on Sundays. He thought he could, but he can't. So he's going to come on, and we're going to do sort of a multi-hour exploration of the Apocrypha and the New Testament. So that's going to be the 21st, which is a Saturday. We will go live, and we will be taking questions once everything's done. So that's the last thing. And again, don't get me wrong. We'll talk about those things, and we'll remind you in future episodes as well. But that is all the news for the time being, anyway. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We praise you for all that you've done. Father, you've shaped the course of history. You don't play dice with it. You don't allow things just to happen by chance. You oversee all things. You allow us free will. You allow us to make mistakes. And you allow us to learn from them. You are a good Father. You don't want us to stay where we are. You want us to grow, to become what we were meant to be, what you want us to be. You guide us to where we need to go. And Father, we thank you that no matter how far or how deep or how long we search, there's always more of you to find. There's always something else that we haven't seen. You are always around that next corner. And you're always telling us there's more corners to take. Father, we thank you that we live in a world full of wonders. We don't appreciate them as often as we should, but we do. We do thank you for what you've done. More importantly, though, we thank you for what you've done on our behalf. You have forgiven us when there is no forgiveness to be given. You've sought our good when we were your enemies. You loved us when we couldn't even love you. Father, we thank you and we praise you for all of these things. We thank you that you've given us your word. We praise you for all of the miraculous things that you are still doing to this day, even if we don't see them. And we trust in you and in your will and in your design. We trust that you have what is right planned for us, for the world. No matter how ugly it gets, we know that you are there. You are working. We know that there's so much pain and toil to come, but so much greater the reward. We know that you've called all of us to this time in this place so we can serve you better. Give us your strength and give us your wisdom so we may pursue that which is true and good and righteous. In your Son's most holy name we pray. Amen. So, in our quest to, oh yeah, got your compression walls, that'll do it. To answer the question of what does it mean to be the kingdom, right? We've been addressing what the kingdom is, right? What does a kingdom mean? How should we look at it? Is it different from our assumptions? Because again, we're coming from the West. When we think of kings and queens and empires and kingdoms, we're thinking of European style stuff, right? We're thinking of King Arthur. We're thinking of, even real people, but we're thinking about kings, and we're thinking about the way the West did it. Well, the West was already, by that point, influenced by Christianity. And so the problem is it changes our connotation to what the original audience was hearing, right? They would have thought about that differently because they were living in a pre-Christian era. Even once the Christians came around, the society they lived in wasn't Christianized. So, we've been exploring those concepts, and now we've come to the point of now it's time to be the citizen, right? To be a citizen of the kingdom. What does that mean? How do we behave? And so that brings us thus to the Sermon on the Mount, the centralized the document for Christianity. This is what we are supposed to be. Again, I think it was a rabbi. I wish I could remember who it was or where it was. I heard it from another pastor. They said that the central, a key theme in the history of Christianity is Christians trying to avoid living by the plain meaning of the Sermon on the Mount, because it is the hard. Christianity is simple, but it's hard because of the standards that Jesus sets. And it's in to the point, the beginning of this is what we call the Beatitudes, right? It's the blessed. By the way, if you want to know why they call it the Beatitudes, it's because that word blessed, that we translate as blessed, is I can't even pronounce the Greek version, but essentially we've translated that as beatitude. And so now that we're back to the idea of these of the blessings, talk about them, and now we're going to try and get into them in specific, right? Well, the thing that changed my view of these, just even this week, was I was listening to a Catholic commentator, and he mentioned that what Matthew is doing in his work, and again, ostensibly, it's not just Matthew who's writing this; it's probably all of them, right? Matthew's the one who's doing the writing, and he's probably the one who's helping do it the most. He probably was the most literate, but everyone's probably having some sort of commentary on it. So this is really, I would view Matthew as a larger document. It's not just him; it's other people as well. but of the apostles. But they pointed out, because I had mentioned, last week, hey, the Beatitudes, like, that's chapter 5 of a, it's really early in the book. And it's basically the first thing we hear about his ministry, right? Because, like, he's born, he goes travels to Egypt, we get the baptism, we get his trial in the desert, and we see that there's stuff going on, right? He's out there, he's speaking, but then the first real sort of recordation of what he's saying to these people is happening here in chapter 5. Well, why? What's happening here? And he points, and this Catholic commentator pointed out, Matthew's trying to paint Jesus as a new Moses. And that's when it sort of clicked. I'm like, dummy, how did you not see that, right? It's kind of obvious. And this is where we have to change our thinking from, again, this is not a textbook. The Bible is written in a very different manner. The authors are not trying to just go, with the exception of Luke. Luke is a historian. So he's like, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, here is what happened in order, right? Although you could even argue that Luke's not even necessarily going in order. He's going by the order of the other authors. But he's just trying to give you the facts, right? But Matthew and John, really Matthew and John, because Mark is very much playing off of Matthew. But Matthew and John, they've got real agendas, right? And they're thought out agendas, and they're trying to convey those messages. Matthew is writing to the Jews of the time. Remember, if Matthew is the first book, then he is, and I believe that it is, I think there's a good argument for it. We've talked about that in the past. He's trying to write to the people of Jerusalem. He is writing to the Jewish people in general. That's who they're going for. So there are patterns that they would have seen in this that we don't necessarily see. They have conceptions in their head that we don't necessarily have in our heads, right? So Matthew is in providing us Jesus, the story of Jesus. He's trying, and using that narrative, he is using Jesus's life he's hitting the points that shows, like, no, he's the new Moses, he's the new high priest, he's the better one. Because he is the Son of God. He's able to do this. And they would have seen the Beatitudes very differently. And when you realize this, and here's the argument for it, right? How do we know he becomes the new Moses? Well, okay, so he's born, right? Okay, so we have the story of his birth. We then then what happens after the story of his birth? Herod tries to kill all the male children. Does that sound familiar? Well, yeah, it sounds familiar, because that's what happened to Moses. Moses is sent off in a basket to be raised by Pharaoh's daughter in Egypt. What happens to Jesus? They go down to Egypt. Then what happens in Egypt? That's where he's raised for a time period, and then he's called out of Egypt. Well, what happens to Moses? He leaves Egypt. They go out into the wilderness. What is the very next story? John the Baptist baptizing Jesus, so he can go start his ministry, by which he begins his ministry by going to the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. It is after this his tempting in the wilderness, where he's fasting for 40 days. How long was Moses on top of Mount Sinai? 40 days. Then he comes back. Now he comes back, he's full of power, he's starting his ministry, and we don't know how long it takes between his tempting in the spirit, or in the wilderness rather, by Satan. We don't know how long it is between then and chapter 5. But there is clearly a lot of events happening, right? He starts calling, because he's already called his people to him, and it talks about how he was clean, he was healing demoniacs and diseases. Like, he's been doing this for a while. But then we get to chapter 5. So the question, we don't know. There could be weeks or months maybe even years, probably weeks though, between chapter 4 and chapter 5. But chapter 5 is the first time he says this. Why? Because of what is about to happen. So the multitudes are there, right? In chapter 5, verse 1, when he saw the multitudes, he went up on the mountain. What did Moses do? He went up on the mountain to do what? To be with God. And after he sat down, the disciples came to him. Moses went up to the mountain. Now remember, all of the rules and laws had been given at the base of the mountain. Moses went up to get God's side, right? That's something we've talked about in the past. Most people think, okay, well, he goes up to get the Ten Commandments. He did not. He went up. This was in the title world. We would call this a two-part signing. One person signs here, the other person signs here. They already had the commandments. They had all the rules. They had all the laws. It was written on parchment by Moses. Everyone agrees to it. He goes up to get God's copy, his signed copy, which is in stone. That's what he brings down. So Jesus goes up on the mountain, and then what happens? The disciples come up with him. Where Moses had to go and come back, we all go with him. This is so to the readers in the first century, they would have been like, this dude thinks he's Moses. He's coming out of Egypt. He's going into the wilderness. He's going up on the mountain. But hold up. Now he's bringing the people with him. This is a change. He's not going up and coming down. He's coming up, and we're all coming up with him. Well, what does this change the Beatitudes into? The Ten Commandments. Now, while the Beatitudes are clearly their own separate thing, there's eight Beatitudes and then two metaphors. Because right in chapter 6, following the Beatitudes, right, we have the metaphor of the salt and the metaphor of the light. And then he stops and says, I did not come to abolish the law or the prophets. While the Beatitudes and the metaphors are separate, like, okay, yeah, those are separate discourses, completely agree. I think they're paired that way because it's 10. There's 8 Beatitudes, 2 metaphors, salt and light. Hey, Joey. It is where he says, I didn't come to destroy the law. That's where he's changing the topic. That's where Matthew is changing the topic. So that makes the Beatitudes, and then you add the 2 metaphors, the 10 Commandments. It's a redo of the 10 Commandments. That's what he's doing here. And here's the deal, though. We often think, okay, well, when we think about the law, we think about the 10 Commandments. There were like 600 something laws. I can never remember how many laws there were. Like, there's a lot of laws, right? And so it's one of those things where we think, oh, it was just the 10 Commandments that happened in Mount Sinai. No, it's a bunch of them. The 10 Commandments are basically like the 10 Commandments. The way to look at them is they're often called the Decalogue or the words, right? It's the idea. It's almost like they're subject headings. Like, these are the big ideas. Like the 10 Commandments, these are the big topics. And all the laws sort of fall into them somewhere or another, right? That's sort of the way that it was viewed. Well, in the same way, these 8 Beatitudes and 2 metaphors are the foundation for everything else he's about to say, everything else he's about to do. So not only is Matthew positioning him as sort of this new Moses, right? So that's what the text is doing with him. That's where Matthew's taking it, and they're saying, hey, these are basically the 10 Commandments. The other thing that struck me is, even though these are basically the 10 Commandments, they're not really for us. Not Christians. Not really. And here's what he meant, right? If we look at all these, what is he saying? So let's go through them. Blessed is the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Well, hold on. What does poor in spirit mean? It means those who know that they have great spiritual needs. It's those who aren't like, they're not self-righteous. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Well, hold on. Those who mourn. Well, why are they mourning? They're mourning for the unrighteousness of the world. The pain, the suffering. It's not just their loss, it's the loss of the world that they're mourning for. And the gentle shall inherit. Meek is usually the translation, but gentle is a better one. But I'm sorry, do we see the gentle inheriting the earth right now? No. It's those who want power, those who claim power, those with the sword. That's who has power now. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Those are the people who want righteousness to occur, who want justice. They want these things. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. You want to get screwed over in this life? Be merciful. There's a reason why the saying, no good deed ever goes unpunished, which I wholeheartedly believe in. There's a reason that saying exists. It's because mercy is the easiest way to get yourself screwed over in this life. Blessed is the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. So again, shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you and say all kinds of evil things against you on account of me. We don't see victory as persecution. The world sees victory as victory, actually winning, having power, taking revenge on your enemies, but not being persecuted, not being demeaned and belittled. Respect is what we have, right? It's the respect that we want. We want admiration. So here's the thing. These are not necessarily for us. They are, in the fact that they are what we are. But he didn't say this for us. He said that for other people, because what he's doing is he is taking their worldview. He's taking the worldview of the world and saying, you're wrong. This is what it's like. He's inverting everything. It's the poor in spirit, the ones who know that they need God. They're the ones that the kingdom of heaven is for. It isn't the rich and powerful who are haughty and have all of the laws memorized and walk around with their robes. That's not who has the kingdom of heaven. It's the guy who's like, forgive me, the sinner. It's not those who are powerful and vicious and use every opportunity to utilize power to impose their will on us. It's the guy who's gentle. That's not who the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven isn't for the guy who's going to take power. It's for the gentle. It's for the one who looks at people and says, let me help you. Let me guide you. Let me be gentle. Let me not oppress you. That's who gets the power in the kingdom of heaven. The entire point here is to shock the worldview of the reader. It's to say, everything you think you know, everything you think you've been taught, all of the preconceived notions that you have are wrong. I'm going to invert them. When I said that they weren't said for us, it's true. He's inverting, not for the Christian. He's taking the secular worldview. He's taking our worldview, our unsaved worldview, and he's inverting it. He's like, no, that's not how this is going to work. This is what it needs to be. When we're Christians, this is what we are. Because here's the thing. It's the present tense of some of these words, right? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. If you recognize that you're poor in spirit, if you recognize you got nothing, you just have you fall on God's mercy, you beg for his forgiveness, the kingdom of heavens are already yours. It's not a future tense thing, it's a present tense thing. But you got to get there, because for them they thought, well, the kingdom is what's today, it's what we have. when the Messiah comes, he's just going to get rid of the Romans. And it's the guys who have all the power and the robes, the money, the ones who make all the, it's Jesus later talks about with the widow's mite. It's like, it's the guys who are dropping all the silver and gold and they're wearing their nightly. Those are the people who have the kingdom of heaven, because God blesses the righteous. And clearly they must be very righteous if they're very rich. And Jesus is like, wrong. And then the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth, right? Well, inherit the earth how? Inherit the earth when? In the millennial kingdom. We become what? Kings and priests. It's the gentle who become the kings. It's the gentle who gain power. Again, this is he's saying this to invert the worldview of the people of the time. As Christians, this is who we are. We fight it though, don't we? We don't necessarily always want to be the peacemakers. Now the question does become, what is peace? What is peace? That's a fine conversation to have. But seeking peace versus seeking victory can oftentimes be two different things, and it hurts. And we want victory over peace sometimes. So these Beatitudes, these 8 Beatitudes, lead into the final 2 that make up our 10. It says that you're salt, right? You're salt of the earth. But if the salt has become tasteless, how will it be made salty again? Then he talks about the light. You're the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Men do not light a lamp and put it under the peck measure or bowl for a lampstand, right? It's the next 2 metaphors are salt and light. Why? Because if you are those things, if you're those 8 things, then you are salt. Your job is to preserve the world. If you are these 8 things, if these 8 things embody you, then you are the light of the world. You are to show, or you are the light, you are a light in the world, because Jesus is the light of the world. But, okay, hold on. Well, metaphor still works, because Jesus is the light of the world. He is supposed to shine through you, so you then become the light of the world to the world. You're the light. You are to show your light in a dark place. You don't hide it. You should be out there. That's why these are 2 different commands. These are, I would argue, they're not the Beatitudes, but they're the last 2 of the 10 of these new 10 commandments, because they are showing you what you are supposed to be. You're the salt. You preserve it. And by the way, also it loses its saltiness, its tastiness. Salt brings out the true flavor of a food, right? But for the time it was in, it was preserving. You need it, not just for flavoring, but to keep your food from rotting. So our actions preserve the world. As the light, we expose, we shine, we show everything that there is. You don't hide yourself. These are commandments. So what Matthew is doing with this sermon by putting the Sermon on the Mount where he is, or where it is, and in the narrative flow, they are reinforcing this idea of Jesus as the new Moses. The Beatitudes and the metaphors are the 10 commandments. That's what they are. They're a new 10 commandments. He is telling us to be poor in spirit. He is telling us to mourn for the evil of this world. He is telling us to be gentle. He is telling us to hunger and thirst for righteousness. He is telling us to be merciful, to be pure in heart, to be peacemakers. He is telling us to count all of our oppression for his name, not because you're a jerk. There are plenty of people who run around thinking, oh, look at how oppressed I've become, because and I'm calling out Christians on this one, because this conversation is not for anyone else. But when there are Christians who are running around and they're basically they're acting like jerks, and then people come against them, I'm like, well, you started a fight. What did you expect to happen? You throw a brick at a window. Did you expect it to stick? No. If you weren't now, but there is a difference between running around acting like a jerk and being one of these. Okay, this is a good place to sort of end on. There is a huge difference between being a jerk, right, and being one of these weak progressive, God just loves everyone. Let's not call anyone to account. Let's not talk against sin. Let's not mention the evil of sin. Let's not do any of those things. Viewpoint, right? These hippie Jesus churches where let's love everyone. There is no such thing as sin. All lifestyles are good. Everything is good. And we're not going to, you can go do whatever you want. It's fine. Jesus still loves you. And Jesus is your pimp daddy. He's super awesome. And let's go be cool. Like that's not Christianity. Straight up. That it's the we don't want the world to think ill of us, because if they do, then they may not come to Jesus. If that's your viewpoint, you're not in the church. That is not the church Jesus is talking about. That's not the peacemaker Jesus is talking about. Peacemaker, multiple connotations, but peace with whom? That's the real question, right? Peace with whom? With God. That's the only peace that matters. The peacemakers, yes, to end violence between people is good. To seek to end conflict is good, but it has to be in righteousness. There has to be truth in it. There is no truth if you're allowing sin. There is no peace if it's merely the cessation of violence and the absence of God's law. There is no peace in love if there is self-righteousness, if there is allowance and permissiveness of abominable acts. If you are to be at peace, it means to be at peace with God. That's really the target here. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't sacrifice for peace. As Christians, sometimes it does mean, you take it on the chin. It's like, you know what? I could fight for what's mine here, but I'm going to let God take care of that. I'd rather have peace. Let's just wipe the slate clean and move forward. Now, if someone, again, we can go into details on that later, but we get the idea. Sometimes it's like, I could ask for the money back that you owe me, but I'm going to slide that slate clean and move forward. I could want what is mine. I could want justice for me, but to fulfill and fix this relationship, I'm going to call all debts off. Let's come back together as one. Let's be at peace. The reason we can do that is because of what Jesus is saying right here, because that's who we are. And ultimately, it's the gentle who inherit the earth, not the vicious. He's telling us all of the things that we would expect and should expect from a secular worldview is wrong. If you're a Christian, you are something else. You're salt. You are light. By the way, you ever just chunk a giant piece of salt? You taste it real fast. And this is the thing. If we're salt, we're meant to preserve. Well, salt stands out. Like I said, you put just big old piece of rock salt on your tongue, you're going to know it real quick. We're not mild. We are gentle. Salt is not quiet. Flavor metaphor here. Salt stands out. You know it. Like there's that tang. It's strong when you have just pure salt. You taste it. That's what we're supposed to be. That's why we preserve. The way we preserve is by pulling the moisture. How does salt work? Right? It's hydrophilic. It pulls the moisture out of the meat. That's how you're preserving it. Right? It takes the evil and pulls it out. It is you're pulling out the evil. That's what we have to do. Yes, Titan, thank you. Bold, not toxic. Bold, not toxic. There is a difference. There is a difference between being an absolute jerk and saying, no, I love you, but you're doing wrong. Or I love you, and the way you're living is not good for you. It's not going to grant you the ultimate happiness that you're looking for. I want you to be happy. I want you to be fulfilled, which means living this way, not what you're doing. Joey, I just saw your comment. Trying to get sober? God bless you for that. And God be with you. And it's not going to be easy. Unfortunately, life's hard. And our struggles are real. So we're going to be praying for you during this. And with a child on the way, that is the number one reason for you to get sober. In fact, this is, like I said, I was wrapping up there, but there's one thing I think it's off topic, but it ties into what Joey's talking about here. These are the 10 Commandments, but he's saying them to invert the world because it's who we are now. That being said, still we're called to be. We're supposed to be salt. We're supposed to be light. If we're salt and light, we preserve the world by removing the evil. If we're light, we expose the truth. That means showing people the way that they go. Again, telling people, hey, you know what? This lifestyle you're living, it's not good for you. It's not truth. You're hiding from something. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was like, what about this? I just told him, like, you don't really have problems with those things. I have to stay vague. But I'm like, these issues are not the issues you're really having trouble with. You have other issues, like little dogs barking. Like your bigger issue is that. I'm like, let's actually look at what your big issue is, because these are just all symptoms. It's like, well, this is what you got to come out of. It's this fear that you have to come out of. You're not supposed to live in fear. You're doing all the right things superficially, but you're still living out of fear, and not to God. Those are two different things. Living out of fear of this is not really living for God. And the problem is it's showing up in all these other things over here. You got to get rid of this. You got to get rid of this fear, this ultimate fear that you have. That's got to go so you can live the right way. If we are light, we expose the truth. Well, has that mic always been there? I smacked my hand into it. We have to expose the truth in our lives first, and then everyone else's life, in the world around us. And we don't do it to be like, ha, look at how spectacular you are. No, we show the truth. We say, but there's a better way. We have to be gentle. There's a better way to live. You don't need the pornography. You don't need drugs, alcohol, whatever the vice may be. You don't need to live for money. You don't need to live for whatever you're doing. You live for God. This is the better way to live. It isn't in the fulfillment of whatever strange sexual fetish you have. It is in service of God. You have to change your life. You have to change your perspective. You have to get right with God, because it is then that you truly live. You're dead now. You are dead in your sins. To live is to live this way, free from the sin and living for God. That is our call. That's the new 10 Commandments. It's the Beatitudes and the two metaphors. That's what this is about. Now, Joey, one of the great lies of the modern world is that being a father or our family is sort of a secondary thing. We're told to live for our own happiness. We're told to embrace our self-fulfilling pleasures. None of that is true. God made us male and female so that there can be children. We are As fathers and husbands, we are representative of God. That's the metaphor. Women are representative of the bride. Your role as a husband and father is to be head of the household. That means gentle. That means you protect them from the world. You do and live up to the status that God has given you. Being sober isn't for your benefit, it's for their benefit. Your life is no longer your life. You've given that up to give them a better one. That is your job. That is your role. That is who you are. Our lives are lived in joy and fulfillment, not by satisfying our earthly pleasures for alcohol or sex or any of these things, or money or power. We do it by serving others. And as a man, you serve no one greater, or you should first serve your family, then you serve someone else. It isn't that it makes us, our sacrifices are for them. That is why we sacrifice. And it's okay to accept that. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. This is what you're going to do is the hardest thing you will ever do. But it's also the most rewarding thing you will ever do. It is the most, this is where you will find joy. You know, it's also where you will find the greatest hardships and pains and worry in your life. That is why you need God. Anything else of the world can satisfy for temporary things. They can take the edge off, but they'll never actually satisfy you, and they will never guide you through this. Your soberness is important, not for you, but for them. And so let me first say thank you that you're doing this. I have known many people in my life who would not do this. I've known many friends who have been hurt because their fathers did not do this. What you are doing is important. And I know that you understand this, but sometimes it's good to hear it. I'm proud of you. And I know Jesus is proud of you. We don't have to think of Jesus being proud for us doing the right thing, but he is. He knows what it's like to live in this life. He knows what it's like to be human. He was sick. He got hurt. I've always, he knows what it's like to be hot, what it's like to be cold. He knows what it's like to be tempted. He knows what it's like to be tempted more than any of us do, because we always give in to our temptations. He didn't, right? But he's proud of you because he also knows how hard it is to change, because he was human. He knows this, and he's proud of you for making that change. I like that. It's a new road. It's a new road, and it's one that is conscientious. If you haven't, I would recommend actually looking up and watching, and maybe even reading the books, but by Jordan Peterson. But he's got a lot of videos out. They're very helpful. He's basically just telling, it's all the stuff that we all should have learned as kids anyway, but unfortunately our culture doesn't value these things anymore, so he's the villain. You've hit a sick society when someone telling you to clean your room and pick up the heaviest object that you can, and help the world around you and reconcile with your loved ones. When he's the bad guy, you've run into a sick society. But you are in our prayers, and you've got an entire group of people here who want the best for you and are going to be praying for you and are here for you. You can do this. The Spirit of God, it will help you do this. It may not be easy, though. And whatever you got to do to get through, right? It's what it's going to take. But what you just always recall, what you're doing, it's not for you. That's what's going to keep you going. It's not because you want. It's like when I'm doing something for me, I know that I peter out real fast because it's like, well, it doesn't matter because I can just throw it out. When you're doing something for something that matters, you hold on to it a lot longer because that ultimately holds on to you. You've got this. I believe you do. Doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. And I mean this not to say that I believe it, that I believe that it will happen, but even when there are mistakes, when there's backsliding, no, it's not a perfect thing. You can't, if you fall, you have to get back up. It is in the endeavor that matters. But we believe that you can do this. I'm going to root for you that there is no backsliding or failure because I think you'll do it. But if there is, always remember you can get back up again. It's not a video game. You don't go back to zero. We always move and we fail and we fall, but then we get back up. It is moving down that road that matters the most. Some people yell at somebody or will laugh at people for tripping or falling or needing crutches to walk down the road. I'm just happy that people are walking down the road because so many stop and turn the other way. Crossing that finish line is what matters. The finish line is when we die. The problem is, have you made it as far down the road as you can? Wherever that finish line that God has for you, that's where it is. You go for that line. It's just be on that journey because so many stop and they just go back. Be on that journey. Remember what you're doing is important because you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for them. And Jesus is proud of you, God is proud of you, and they will give you the strength to carry through. Doesn't mean it won't be hard, but you will do it. So, guys, let's remember Joey in our prayers, and we will see y'all tonight on Daniela's Hidden Existence. I'm going to be recording another video for Sirupapers. Again, the link is in the description below. It's the very bottom link. That is the new channel that we're going to be doing all this stuff. That you can like, follow, subscribe, and then share the crap out of. This channel's for us, right? I want to keep it small and intimate because if we had 10,000 people, we wouldn't necessarily even know that Joey Hayes was there because he'd just be one of these thousands of things going up. I like the fact that this is small, but Sirupapers, share the crap out of that because everyone needs to hear about how this works, right? About Christianity, about how the biblical perspective for cryptozoology, paranormal, all that. That's what that's for. So I'm going to be doing a video on the UAP, and that should premiere this afternoon. So love y'all. Oh, hold on. Understood. Understood. And this is, like I said, brother, it's hard. We're going to be praying for you. You can do this. God will, he will take you out of this. You just gotta be in it. You gotta be in it. You gotta remember that this is something that you need to do. You got this, man. So I'll see y'all later. Like I said, Daniela will have the UAP thing up this afternoon, and then tomorrow we got Texas from Porch. So y'all be good. Wrong button. Seriously, I give Tex crap all the time for not knowing where the button is, and I'm over here like, that's the wrong button. That's wrong. He's never gonna let me live this down. Bye.